welcome to episode 2. You've made it this far, so congratulations and thank you. Um, we are switching up the format a little bit today. We are going to be talking about one major topic, or one like greater topic, where this is actually one of Sam's ideas, where we talk about the worst whatever, the worst experience, the worst meal that you've ever had, something like that. And so, Sam, you were actually you. When did you come up with this? Was it last night?
It was something we were talking about a little bit last night at my house. We were discussing like different things that have happened to us in our lives, and I think what usually stands out when people ask me what's the best thing that's ever like what's the best food you've ever eaten? What's the best time you've ever had traveling? What's the best time you've ever spent with your family, friends, doing whatever? What's the best meal? And the answer is hard to find. It's something that we've had so many good experiences in our life that the answer is so difficult to just sort of pin down to one. But we found that it's very simple to figure out the worst thing that has ever happened to us in those situations. Those come to mind instantly, and so we were able to just rattle off things that we were very unhappy that had happened to us. And so we thought, hey, we could transfer this. We can riff on this for a few minutes. We can talk about this, and I'm sure that you and I both have some interesting stories to share on this one.
I feel like when it comes to the best, you're always like worried about like, oh, I had this experience and it was great, but I kind of forgot about these ones and maybe those were better.
Right.
But like you're always going to remember the worst experience that you've ever had with like something.
And I think we're fortunate that we've had like we're in our mid-20s, but like we've had pretty interesting lives so far, and pretty different lives too in terms of the things that we've experienced. And the same goes for anyone, but everyone's got their own unique experiences, and everyone's got their backstories. And I think part of the thing with labeling something the best, and you just brought up with the leaving people out, I think that's really interesting because leaving something out, leaving people out, leaving another experience out. I think when someone asks me what my favorite time, what was your favorite concert you ever went to, I want to make sure I say something that included them, because I want to make them feel included, and unless they weren't there, obviously. But other things like when it's like the worst thing, you want it to be as unique as possible because no one else could possibly experience the same level of pain or annoyance that you experienced in that story.
Yeah.
So
when you're talking about your worst, you're trying to be like, this is ridiculous how this happened, or like, how could this have happened? This seems so far-fetched that it's not something that you really think about and that you really want to talk about. So it's like it's easier, I guess, to come up with those kinds of experiences where you're like, this really sticks out to me because it was so wild.
Yeah, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, I want to return back to something that we talked about a little bit in the last episode. Because I brought up in episode 0/1, whichever one we're going to call it, where we're not really popular on the internet yet, and we want you all, the viewers, the listeners, to get to know us a little bit. And so I wanted to start off with a couple more of those like speed dating type questions, like the quick get to know you type questions that we can do maybe a couple for the first couple of episodes, just to sort of give you all sort of a picture of who we are as people, and then we can dive into our worst experience, which I have teed up, but you'll have to keep watching to find out what that is. But Simon, would you like me to get started on this one? Because I've got a couple lined up.
Yeah, I started last time, so that's
cool.
That seems fair.
That does seem fair. So what? I'll start with an easy one. Here's an easy one. Maybe it's not. Do you have a favorite Disney movie, And follow up, do you have do you have a favorite Pixar movie?
So I haven't watched a whole lot of Disney movies in my life. I think I watched Lion King for the first time that I remember at least this year, as well as like Aristocats and things like that.
Wait, hold on. You didn't watch Lion King until this year?
Yeah, no, I've told you about that, right?
I I vaguely remember a conversation, but I thought you were joking.
No, I might have seen it, but I don't remember seeing it. Like I usually remember movies that I've seen after like the age of 5 or so, because I feel like 5 to like 8 or 9 is about the right time to have watched Disney movies. But
Hmm.
I don't remember seeing Lion King. I mean, I watched it I think in like January or February because we have Disney Plus now, and so we can watch all of those, and so I have been watching a lot of those. Um, but I don't really think that I had seen most movies from Disney until like this year.
So, do you have a favorite if you haven't seen that many? Like
I
of the ones you've
absolutely,
seen?
absolutely.
Mhm.
My favorite is probably by far Moana, and
Mhm.
you know this.
I know that. Yeah,
I've
I wondered if it was going to be Frozen or Moana.
Yeah,
And
I've seen Frozen a couple of times, at least twice. That might be it. But I've watched
mm,
Moana probably 8 or 9 times, and it's so good. I cry almost every time. I at least like 8 times.
mm,
I watched it uh, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think, and it was just as emotional a response as the last time.
the first time or the
Yeah,
last every time before that. Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. It's a great movie. I don't really
I
know
remember
what
having.
like Pixar movies are independent of Disney Pixar.
So I mean, those are things like Monsters Inc. is Pixar. Up is Pixar. Is Up Pixar? Up is Pixar.
I think Up
Gotta
is
be.
Pixar.
And then yeah, like Bugs Life is Pixar, and that's like more of an older one. Brave.
Is Bugs Life Pixar or is Bugs Life DreamWorks?
Bug, Bugs Life is Pixar. Shrek is DreamWorks.
Huh. Oh,
Slightly
Cars.
different animation.
Cars is Pixar.
Cars is Pixar. Yeah.
I don't really know if I have a favorite Pixar movie. Then I like them, but I don't know if
Mhm.
I have necessarily a favorite because I think Brave is Disney. If Brave is
It's Disney Pixar.
okay,
Yeah, it's both.
I was gonna say if Brave is just Pixar, then I would go with Brave. But if Brave
Mhm.
is Disney Pixar, then I think that probably counts in the Disney camp. I don't know. Brave is a good movie though.
It is a good movie. Saw that one recently, actually, for the first time. I hadn't because we too have Disney Plus. Uh,
Everyone's got it now.
it's everyone's got it now. It's the cheapest streaming service. Prove me wrong. Like I think it's what $7, $7 a month.
I don't know. I don't pay for it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, but I think if I had to pick a Pixar movie that was my favorite, it would probably be Monsters Inc. Just because I grew up with
Mhm.
that one. I don't know.
Mhm.
Cars is a close second, I guess. But I
Mhm.
kind of came like a little bit too early for that one.
Ciao.
I'm a little too
I am Speed.
well, because I would like babysit kids that would love
Mm.
cars, and to me, like being the 16 or 17-year-old babysitter, watching the 8-year-olds that are only like, I guess it's 9 years younger than me. That's
Yeah,
like, I don't know. I never really,
that's what they were watching.
yeah. It always seemed a little too out of my age bracket.
Fair enough. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I mean, obviously they are geared towards kids, so that they get kids. They sell more tickets,
Yeah,
like, but it's also Disney, so it's a whole company geared towards like children's entertainment,
yeah,
but stuff that parents can also enjoy, adults can also enjoy. But very cool, very cool. Sorry, I threw that one sort of at you, thinking that you might have might have a little bit more of like an opinion on that stuff. But I knew about Moana. I knew that one coming. Um,
yeah.
but the
I've seen Frozen a couple of times, and Frozen's very good. I haven't seen Frozen 2 yet,
mm,
but
it's good.
I should. I've heard that it's very good.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
fun movie.
yeah.
Like,
So I've got a question for you.
Okay.
if we're all done with that topic,
Yes, we are.
what is the creepiest or most unexplained thing you've ever seen that you haven't shared anywhere?
Huh.
This
Like,
wasn't
haven't
on the
shared
list.
anywhere. No, it was not on the list, but I'm sure you went to Reddit and found some stuff.
Sure did.
So can you say that one more time?
What's the creepiest or most unexplainable thing you've ever seen? Doesn't
Okay.
necessarily have to be that you've never shared anywhere, but just like what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen?
Hmm. I mean, I've like experienced like ghost situations, but I don't like I have a couple ghost stories, but we can save that for another podcast, another episode a little later on, maybe a spookier time of year. And the I wonder what spookier time of year I could be referring to. Um, I think most paranormal, or most like creepiest or strange paranormal potentially thing. I don't know. Honestly, I'm stalling for time here.
I mean,
I
what's like how many ghost experiences have you had that you have like that many that you can choose between?
I have two. I have two
Okay.
that come to mind, but the I have to think about it a little bit more. I might have some conversations with my parents about like anything that I may have mentioned to them at any other time in my life. But creepiest things I've ever seen. That's a tricky one. I don't do well like looking at things that make me uncomfortable, and it'd probably be something like in a movie. Like I feel
That's fair.
I yeah, it'd probably be. I think the monster from Quiet Place is one of the creepiest things I've ever laid my eyes on.
I've still never watched that. Looking back
It's
on
a
it,
great
like
movie.
I've never seen a lot of movies that people are like, you should watch this, but
I same. I'm getting around to it.
yeah, I
It's
do you ever see the monster in the Quiet Place?
Yeah,
Okay.
you see them. I mean, you see them in the first couple minutes of the movie, and then, but they're really fast. They're like super fast monsters,
Yeah.
and but near the like right at the end of the movie, they figure out. Well, okay, I'm not going to spoil the movie, but um, you get to see the monster up close a
Okay.
couple of times during the movie. It's got like crazy teeth, and it like opens its face up. It's kind of yeah.
Anytime I think
It's
about that movie, I kind of imagine it as like the monster from Cloverfield, where it's all
mm,
like Cloverfield is a great suspenseful movie because
mm.
you never see the monster or you like only
You
catch
see it
like
at the
a
very
tiny
end.
bit of it. Yeah.
It's like
And
found footage film.
yeah, it's great. I mean, I feel like probably everyone you've seen Cloverfield.
I actually saw Cloverfield in theaters. It was one of the times I've been to a few movies by myself. I went like when I was in high school and middle school. My mom would let me go to them. Well, particularly in middle school, would let me go. Once I was in high school, I would go on my own sometimes to the movies. And the Cloverfield, I think, might have been no, not the first, but it's one of the first movies I saw by myself in theaters because no one wanted to go with me. But
That's
I was curious about it.
yeah, I feel like it's a good movie to see in theaters because it's very like story heavy because
Hmm.
you don't see the monster, you don't generally get a whole lot of like jump scares or anything like that. It's literally just like the story and plot line until the very end.
There's a fruit fly by my face. If you see me swatting at something that you can't see,
Yeah, I was like,
um,
what are you doing?
there's a fruit fly. God, this is going to be on the podcast, isn't it? I, I feel like Seth Meyers with his wasps, with his attic wasps.
I don't watch
Have
Seth
you been
Meyers,
watching any?
but no.
You should be watching some late night on YouTube. Just the videos he posts.
um,
He's recording in his attic right now, and he's got wasps.
oh
He's
no,
got flying around. They're like flying around. You can see them.
that seems like a bad idea.
I
I
mean, it's his idea.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. I I was doing some work out on the patio this weekend, and we may or may not have bees in like the siding of our apartment wall. And
Huh.
so yeah, I saw like one or two, and I was like, well, that's not great, but they might have come from
As long as
somewhere
they're not
else.
in the apartment.
Yeah, not
As long
yet,
as they don't get in the apartment.
not yet. Did you answer the question?
Did I answer the question? I
Yeah,
said maybe the creature from Quiet Place. I said it'd probably be something from a movie.
right.
Was the maybe the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
Okay.
Other than that, like gross bodily harm in film and television would probably be among the creepier things I've ever seen.
Do you not do well with
But
like gore, that kind of stuff?
I don't do well with like when people experience intense pain. I when
That's
it's like clear that they're like when I can imagine it happening to me, like that's when I become physically uncomfortable.
that's probably
But
for the best. That probably means that you're not like a psychopath or something like that.
probably not.
No,
I don't think I am,
no,
but
I don't
I
think
don't
you
think a
are either.
psychopath would think that
Knowing
they're
you,
psychopathic.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Um.
So you want to
Well,
get into
okay.
the meat of the actual topic that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
kind of wanted to
Let's
talk
do
about?
this. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm pretty excited about this one. So this is the new segment that we're going to be doing. It's going to be a recurring segment called The Worst, and we're going to be discussing things that we that have happened to us in our lives that are the worst thing that has ever happened to us. We don't know yet if this will become a like the main topic yet because we're still figuring things out on this podcast. This is a work in progress constantly until we have a formula. But there's a lot of things we're going to try out, and this is one of them. So the first worst topic that I want us to discuss on the podcast is the worst travel experience that you've ever had. And I can think of there's a couple that come to mind for me, but I've got one that just far exceeds it, and it's got a whole story to go with it. And I'm wondering if you have something similar.
So I don't do a whole lot of traveling.
Mhm.
I generally don't like flying that much. I don't know why. I think it's got to do with like the amount of turbulence that I've had to deal with. So I don't fly a whole lot.
Mhm.
But I do like driving, and I do like driving a lot, like long distances. And so I mean, we did a road trip
Mhm.
5 years ago, 6 years ago.
We talked about it a little bit last time. I think we mentioned it that 5 years ago this week. I think we went on
Yeah.
yeah, it was this week. We went on a cross country road trip from yeah, we could say this from Vermont to Oregon, and we did it in 6 days. I think staying in like Cincinnati, Kansas City. We had a friend whose parents lived in Colorado that let us stay there. We parents have friends in Utah, or they don't live there anymore, but they were in Salt Lake City, and then we drove on to my family in Oregon, and the we did that with our partners, and this is what we talked about last week,
Right.
that we were still with them. So
Yeah.
this is the this is the fun part. But the fun part is that we get to still be with these people that we spent all this time with so long ago. But yeah, that was something that we did together. Please tell me that's not your worst travel experience of all
No, no,
time.
no, 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 not at all. I I don't really know if there's like necessarily a worst. The one that comes to mind most easily because it's kind of the most recent is my partner and I were going. We flew down to Austin, Texas for a weekend, really, because we went like Thursday to what was supposed to be Monday.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so we flew down Thursday morning at like 5 a.m. We It was in February of this year, I think, and so the Northeast got hit by a huge snowstorm, um, which was like I don't remember how many inches it was, but it was probably close to a foot, I think. But it was a lot of snow. Like traffic was terrible from what I heard.
Mhm.
But we were not here for that. We were in Austin, which was great. Except flying back, we were supposed to leave on Monday and get back like Monday night because it takes probably 6 or 7 hours to fly from Austin to Charlotte to I think we might have stopped in Newark at some point and then up
Mhm.
the rest of the way. But it was a huge snowstorm in the Northeast, and so in Texas, that like Monday, I think, there were huge like thunderstorms and essentially turbulence that we wouldn't be able to fly from Austin to Charlotte. And
Mhm.
so we got to the airport at 1, I think. Our flight was at 4 or 5 because
Mhm.
I what else are we going to do with all of our luggage and everything? Just
Yeah, and
leaving
obviously
it
you were
around.
planning to get back. You were planning to get back that night. You were planning to get back home like later that night,
Yeah.
and then yeah,
So
and then
so
spend the next day like recovering from flying.
yeah, because flying's exhausting and like you don't want to have to do anything immediately after that. You just want to pass out and then wake up the next day and deal with it all then.
Mhm.
But we essentially put our luggage on the plane, like did the like check luggage, check bags, whatever.
Mhm.
And then they took our luggage, put it on the plane, and then they said, "Hey, this plane's going to get delayed because of uh, engine failure or something." And so it initially got delayed because of weather. They had to kind of push all the flights back for Austin, and then that like 3 hours later, after it had already been delayed, they did a pre-check of the plane, said everything was fine, started loading people on, and then afterwards said, "Hey, wait a second, we need to deplane everybody, and this plane is going out of commission." So yeah, they just took the plane out of commission. Like nobody will fly on that plane again, which
What?
is terrifying that we almost got on that plane. Uh, do not like that at all, and that certainly did not
No.
help with my kind of not liking
Flying to
flying
begin
at
with.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, what happened after that is we didn't get our luggage back. We had to get put up in a hotel next to the airport uh, Monday night, fly out at like 4 or 5 a.m. on Tuesday. So we got
Hold up. They didn't give you back your luggage.
no. So we had the option to, and it was super confusing. And it was essentially like, we will get your luggage to your final destination, um, but if you want it tonight, we have to go through and like sort everything out because they had already put all the luggage on the plane. They were getting ready to put people on the plane and like leave
Mhm.
when they were like, we can't do this. So instead of getting the luggage off of the plane, they just transferred it from one plane to the other. Uh,
Mhm.
and so that was a mess. But we ended up just getting a hotel room and not having our luggage. Like we had our carry-ons and stuff, but that was basically it.
Mhm.
Um, and so we got a hotel room in Austin and left at like 4 a.m. Went to Charlotte. There was a huge amount of turbulence, which I wasn't thrilled about, and then
Mhm.
went from there the rest of the way. But I, looking back on it, that isn't that bad. I mean, it's
It
not.
just
It's
you got
just
delayed a whole day though, basically.
yeah, it's just like unfortunate. And so like I don't really know if I've had really like stick out terrible flying moments or traveling moments. That's like the worst that I can think of. I threw up one
I
time
think
in
that's
Florida, but that's about it.
well, maybe another time we'll talk about that story. Um, I mean,
It
I think that the things that make flying bad is when things don't go according to plan, and that's a lot of what my story has to deal with. The I've had a few flights that end up where like they get canceled or delayed, and I end up having to take a different flight because I miss a connecting flight or whatever. But the like that whole thing where they almost put you on a plane that that they later decommissioned because they deemed it unsafe to fly, and then they didn't give you your luggage because it would have been too much of a headache. Like that's and this is in the middle of the afternoon though,
yeah.
which is the crazy thing.
Well, at this
It's
point
like
it was like it was
it's not
like
like they're
six
shutting down the
o'clock.
airport. Yeah, but it's not like they're shutting down the airport. They make flights until midnight, and
Yeah.
so like the fact that they in a 6 hour time frame they couldn't give you your luggage because you still had to go back to the airport and like check in, and like you had to check in the next day to fly out. And so the thing that I think bothers me the most is that they didn't give you your luggage.
Yeah, what's even worse is the second time we went back to the airport as we were going through the TSA, I forgot to take my belt off, and so I walked through the metal detector because I was like, I don't really have anything. Like I have a backpack that I'm carrying around with.
You're obviously tired because you've already gone home, and you were hoping to be back by now.
Yeah, and so I'm like walking through the metal detector, and it goes off, and I'm like, what did I forget? And then I look down, and I'm like, oh, I'm wearing my belt. And he's like, okay, take your belt off and give it to me, and then walk through. And I take my belt off, but I forget to give it to him, and so I'm stressed out now. He's stressed out now, and I'm like, listen, guy, it's just my belt. So I eventually managed to give it to him, walk through, walk back. He's like, okay, yep, you're just stupid. You're not, a threat to anybody. Which I have said before, I have no malintent. I don't intend for anybody to get hurt, or like, I don't want to do bad things to people. I'm literally just stupid, and I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. I've said that probably like a dozen times this week. That's
a funny little detail to add there, because that also is that's part of the story. When you tell this later at like a party, you should, because you can refine this story, because trust me, that comes with time. And the part about the belt, like that's like the last straw, because I assume everything after that went normally. You got through, you got your flights, you other than the turbulence.
I mean, after that it was just a flight. Like, we were at the airport, everything went on time. We had to find food, but that was about it. And finding food in an airport is not hard, but it's finding food that isn't going to make you sick on the plane is a little bit trickier.
True.
Luckily, Austin has so many good like airport restaurants that we were able to get at least something, I think, there. But
you just got to do Chili's to go and Cinnabon. Those are the only airport options that are acceptable.
Yeah.
It's either Chili's to go, Cinnabon, or you're wrong. And
I mean, there were a lot of good like barbecue places in the Austin airport, like because Austin is, I mean, maybe not known for its barbecue, but there's a lot of good barbecue in Austin, and so they make sure that they stock their airports pretty well. But yeah, that's, I mean, overall not the worst experience. I'm kind of curious what you've got in store.
I think I've told you this one before, but it's still a good story. So my worst travel experience was I was 19 years old, and I just finished my first semester of college, and I just spent I think this is winter break. This is winter break. I just spent some time with my family out in Oregon, and then I went to high school in West Virginia, and I flew after New Year's. I flew to West Virginia to spend time with my friends, with my high school friends who I hadn't seen in a few months, and we were hanging out for a couple of days, and then so my flight plan was to fly. It was a 4-hour flight plan. I was going to fly from Charleston, West Virginia, to Dulles Airport in Virginia, up to Vermont, and it was supposed to be 4 hours. I was supposed to have like an hour layover in Dulles, and it's like an hour and a half flight to Vermont. And I was supposed to leave at 2:30 and get it to my final destination at 6:30. I had dinner plans with friends up here, and the thing that basically everything went wrong all at once. So I have to drive. First off, I've got to drive an hour from where I went to high school, where my friends were, up to the airport in Charleston. And I go through. Charleston's a tiny airport; takes no time to get through. I got through. I got to the gate about an hour early. Everything's fine, and we were told, okay, boarding will start half hour before the flight. It's about 2:00, and they don't start boarding. And then 2:30 rolls around, they haven't started boarding. And I thought, at this point, the flight's supposed to have taken off, and so that's kind of weird. And they say, oh, boarding will start boarding will start shortly. I was like, oh, okay, fine. And then they come back down after another half hour, and they say the flight has been canceled due to the fact that they basically explained that the plane had flown in from an airport that didn't have passengers, or that didn't fly to Charleston, didn't normally fly between them, and so they didn't send any passengers, which means they didn't require a flight crew. It was just a pilot and a co-pilot, and so there was no flight crew for this plane. There were no flight attendants. There was no one else besides the pilot and co-pilot, and apparently legally they could not fly the plane because of that. I was told I would receive. I was told that if any of my other, like, if my connecting flight, because at this point I was going to miss my connecting flight, that I had to reschedule my planes. But if I had to end up spending the night at the hotel, at a hotel by an airport, whichever airport I ended up at the end of my day, I would be compensated for the night.
Yeah.
And then basically, so then we all got one by one got in line to reschedule our flights, and I had to wait for another hour to reschedule my flights. This is at the help desk at the gate, and this is a small airport. This is a 5-gate airport,
and
so they're all in the same
15 at least people in line just
waiting. It was more like 50. It was more like 50 people, 50 people? And yeah, so I had to wait another half hour to an hour to get my flight rescheduled. So at this point it's about 3:30, and I eventually get to the line, and the person says, so you'll be compensated for the night if you end up having to spend the night somewhere. We're going to figure out where you need to go. Where do you need to go? I was like, I need to get to Vermont. And they're like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to send you to Chicago, and then we're going to send you to LaGuardia, and then you're going to spend the night in LaGuardia, and then you're going to fly up to Vermont the next morning. And so... No. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Is there any other way you can get me back to Vermont today? And they said, well, we could try to fly you to Canada, but then you'd have to go through customs.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I mean, how long do you think that could take? Is like, it depends on the airport. And honestly, I'm 19-year-old stress brain, and I'm thinking okay, fine, fuck, I can go through Chicago, whatever. And so my flight, I did the flight for Chicago, and that left 3 hours later. So I had to wait in the Charleston airport for another 3 hours, except that I had to leave, and they gave us all our bags back, and we had to go back through security because it was a new ticket, and they needed to because it was a new flight plan, and they needed to do all that stuff. So I went back through security. Exactly, and so I had to go back through security. I eventually got on my plane at 6:30, 7 o'clock, flew an hour and a half to Chicago, and then I had an hour layover in Chicago, which at O'Hare is a nightmare. And I was a mad dash to my next gate. I was it was boarding when I got there because it was on the other side of the airport. And anyone who's flown through O'Hare knows exactly what I'm talking about. That airport is a nightmare. It is horribly crowded no matter what day it is. And this was I don't remember what day of the week this was, probably a Friday, and I was already having a bad time. I was hoping at this point I should have been home. I should have been where I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And I'd already canceled my dinner plans. I said I'd already canceled all my plans for the evening. I was like, sorry everyone, I'm not going to make it back. I can't be there for anything. And I had arranged someone to pick me up at the airport the next day. It was a whole ordeal. And then so I get on the plane to LaGuardia, and I know that once I get to LaGuardia, it's an airport. It's the one airport in this whole situation I've never been to before, and so I don't know anything about the layout. I've been fortunate in my life to travel a lot, and I've been to a lot of different airports. I've seen a lot of different stuff. I think we talked a little bit last time about flying from Detroit to London. That might have been a different time, but
yeah.
I've seen a lot of different airports, and except for LaGuardia, and I get to LaGuardia, and it's about 11 o'clock, and
you're tired. You're just I don't want to be here right now.
Right, and so I see that where my flight to Vermont is on the board, and I thought, okay, I need to get my bags. I was told I needed to get my bags at baggage claim and then go to the terminal.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that LaGuardia is kind of a decent sized airport. It's not as big as JFK, but it's a good sized airport. And I was in Terminal C, and I needed to get to Terminal D, and I didn't realize that I was in Terminal C. And so I walked around Terminal C probably 3 times looking for the check-in counter for the gate that I needed to go to. I need to go to Delta, and I eventually realized that I was in the wrong terminal, and I got on the little bus that goes between the terminals, and I got to Terminal D, and by the time I got there, go ahead.
LaGuardia has like a bus. I forget that because I've been to LaGuardia I think once or twice, and I've been lucky enough where I haven't had to change terminals. But all of those bus airports that are huge and you need to have like a shuttle between terminals. I do not like those at all because
it's Denver. Denver is a fun one. Denver is a fun one with the train.
A tent, right? Like
it looks like a tent. Yeah, it looks like a tent.
Airport looks like a tent.
Yeah, it looks like a tent, and it's got a train that runs between terminals. It's pretty cool. I actually really like the Denver airport. But this story basically, because I'd taken so long figuring out where I was, I got to the terminal where the Delta check-in counter was after everyone had left the night, and I was told I had to wait until the next morning to get to my to check in for my flight. And so it's midnight, and I'm thinking like, okay, the earliest flights are probably at like 5 a.m, and so they're not going to be there until at least 3. So I've got 3 hours to kill. And so I go back to Terminal C because I need to go talk to someone at United about getting a hotel.
Yeah.
Because I thought I might as well figure out a hotel. And they said to me, I get back over there, and the United people tell me, your flight has been canceled. Your flight in West Virginia was canceled due to weather, because this was the week of polar vortex. So my flight had not been affected by weather. It was a perfect day. But because there was polar vortex, the airline industry decided to use it as an excuse to not give anyone compensation for their flights. And so I didn't get shit. And so
what the fuck?
I know, it sucked. And I had been told in West Virginia that my hotel would be compensated. And so I gave them a little bit of that, but I folded instantly because I was 19 and tired. And I folded as soon as they said, no, it's weather related. And I was like, this is bullshit. This was flight crew related. But it didn't say that on their site.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I've always had shitty experiences with like check-in counters and stuff when I'm very tired. And I feel like they take that as an advantage and be like, they take that as an opportunity to be like, well, you're tired, so you're not going to care as long as, you get from point A to point B. Like, we could fuck you over so much, and oh well.
Yeah. Oh well. You just got to deal with it. And so I, disappointed, I went back to Terminal D and I waited. And I sat there, and I had my laptop, so I connected to Wi-Fi. I watched some YouTube videos, but I'm delirious tired at this point because I don't want to fall asleep. I'm not at a gate. I'm not on a plane. I don't feel secure where I am sitting outside the ticket counter in LaGuardia. I don't feel secure. Later in my life, I would become more comfortable doing that. I've done that at Boston multiple times. But at this point in my life, I've never experienced anything quite like this, and traveling alone is still a relatively new experience to me at this point. And so I wait and I wait and I wait, and I try to find like a quiet place so I can just zone out and try and get some rest. So because I know that the next day is going to be a pain. And eventually it's about 3 a.m, and I decide to get up and wander towards the counter, and I see about 1,000 people, because that day apparently a lot of New York City schools were going on a mass trip to, like, we're sending their students on a mass field trip or overnight trip or whatever, like, to China. And
What?
so, yeah, so there were a bunch of flights going to Hong Kong. I could see it all on the board, and there were a lot of like chaperones that were holding up like Hong Kong tickets here,
Yeah.
Hong Kong trips here, kind of thing, and like 1,000 New York City high school students. It's insane. I thought I was hallucinating, and it was not what I wanted to be dealing with. I'm like, I am not waiting behind all these kids. And I saw a counter that was like special circumstances, which is clearly for people who have like wheelchairs or children or something. But I was like, I've been traveling for 13 hours, and I want to get to my gate.
That is a special circumstance right there.
Yes, I've already taken the 2 flights that I was supposed to take, and now I'm going to take a third because my flight got canceled due to bullshit. And now I'm here. You're going to put me through.
Yeah.
And I went through. I waited in a 2-person line as opposed to a 1,000-person line, and I got through to my gate. Nothing was open because it was 3 a.m, and so I found my flight was in 6 hours. I decided now is the time to go sleep, and so I slept for like 2 hours, 3 hours. I watched Breaking Bad, and then I and then I got on my plane, and the moment I got to my seat and I got everything situated, I passed the fuck out. And the next part of the story is we're nearing the end, but I'm on the plane to Vermont, and I woke up before I opened my eyes. You know how you can, like, you know how sometimes you wake up and you can hear things before you see things. And I woke up and I could hear the hum of the engine. I'm thinking like, oh yeah, we've got to be almost there. I've been on the plane for I've probably been on the plane for an hour and a half now. We've definitely taken off by now. I wake up, we're on the runway in LaGuardia.
Oh no.
Because of polar vortex, they had closed one of the runways at LaGuardia, and now every plane had to take off from one runway. And we were like 5th in line. And at that point, which means I'd slept through like probably 10 other takeoffs.
So you've got another like hour or two of sleeping before you can actually be in the
exactly
air. Because LaGuardia to Vermont is not a long flight. It's like
it's like a 50-minute flight.
Yeah.
It's nothing. And I eventually got to Vermont, and I got to Vermont around noon on the next day. So all in all, including the drive to Charleston from where my travel day began, it was supposed to be a 5-hour, 6-hour day, basically, total. It turned into a 23-hour travel day. I had a similar one the next year where something that should have been like 6 hours turned into 17 hours, but it wasn't quite the same.
Yeah.
This was a nightmare. I was dealing with like the emotion of being 19 and on my own in this situation. My parents were definitely asleep on the other side of the country. I didn't know how to, like, I had to deal with this myself. I had no one to talk to because they were all asleep because it was midnight, 3 a.m. and I was beside myself, and it was unpleasant, and I felt physically ill because I was eating a burger for breakfast at 6 a.m. It was like, now that sounds awesome, but I don't, not when you're delirious tired.
No, that does sound like the worst.
I feel like I talked about that for way too long, so I'm sorry for everyone.
No, that was good storytelling. I feel like kind of going back to what you said about mine, where you like refine it over time. I'm probably missing a lot of details that I'm like, yeah, that just made it way worse. Like, I mean, when we got to the airport in Austin, or the hotel in Austin, they were having some like special, I guess, where they had like free beer and free wine and like free snacks and everything. And it was like 7 o'clock at night. And so middle of February, like, it's pretty dark at that point. And we were just like, I mean, this is what it's like, I guess. Now this is life, living or being at a hotel where they're just giving us free wine and cheese and stuff like that.
Must be nice.
Yeah,
the silver lining to the horrible day.
Exactly, silver lining. Cool.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So that's the worst travel experience I've ever had.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like the worst.
Yeah, that was the worst. It would have been better with a partner, I think. I would have had more fun if I had someone with me to just sort of take my mind off of the the fact that I was getting shafted by the airlines.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah. I'm sure I'll have something similar happen to me at some point again.
Yeah.
But I don't fly that much anymore.
No, I've never had a bad experience really like driving for travel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean I've popped a couple of tires before and I hit that woodchuck that one time. But
on that cross country trip.
Yeah, he had a death wish, and so when you brought this topic up to me yesterday, that was kind of the first real thing that popped into my head as far as like a driving shitty experience.
You kept getting screwed.
I did.
You had like the worst time.
Yep.
Like honestly, now that I think about it, you did have like the worst time on that trip. Every time you were driving, something happened.
Yeah, I drove through a massive storm in like the middle of May. I hydroplaned a little bit there. I hit a woodchuck. I ran over one of the like dividers in a parking lot in, I think that
Utah.
Might have been, it was
Idaho.
Idaho.
I think it was Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then you got pulled over.
I got pulled over in Kansas going.
I think you were going 15 over.
I'm not going to incriminate myself, but I might have been going a little bit fast. I've paid my fee.
You paid the ticket.
I've done my part to the state of Kansas. So yeah, I don't really know if I've
time.
Yeah, but it balanced itself out. Like you had the shitty experience with all of that, but then you also had a lot of fun things that were like this was worth it. Like
when Jen had an $18 salad in Aspen, like that was the best.
That she didn't pay for. Yeah.
Right. Wasn't it great? Isn't it great?
The entire time that we spend in Aspen, that we can spend another whole episode probably talking about, but that was,
if we ever have New Deal on the show.
I hope we do.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
This actually is a good segue into the last segment, the last thing we want to talk about. Last thing I'd like to talk about, and Simon can talk about it too. We're 2 episodes in here. We want to keep doing this, and we want to keep experimenting with new ideas and new things. And I think one of the cool ways to do that is to bring on guests. We have a lot of cool friends. We've got some friends who have interesting things to say, interesting stories to tell, and interesting ways of doing things that could be really interesting to talk about on this podcast. So we got a couple that are lined up over the next couple of weeks that we're excited to introduce you all to, and get talking about things with.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come up with another topic to talk to Stan about, with like the worst whatever.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I should have saved worst travel for Stan.
True. Stan has traveled a lot. I think we could probably ask him that, and then I have a couple of ideas that I'd like to ping off of you, but we could talk about that later. Everyone, thanks for watching. This has been another long episode, a little longer than I was expecting, but hopefully just as good. So thanks for watching. If you liked it, consider subscribing. We will be putting out another video sometime next week, probably Friday, just from the rate that I've been able to edit things. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Thanks, y'all.